Xenial is like is an extension based on. It isn't an extension based on XCF. It's an application framework based on. Okay, I almost forgot. What does Xenial even mean? Then the verb or the noun Xenial is like hospital, especially for visiting strangers, foreigners, or of the relationship between a host and a guest, mostly friendly. My definition is for Xenial as a framework, it doesn't get into your way, it just gets the job done. It's like a tool wrench belt, getting really medium-sized application out there. It is opinionated, but it's flexible, so you can use whatever you want from the framework without paying any cost. So in terms of technical perspective, it's a little bit like Expand, but it's not like you have to buy all at once in. You can nitty-picky choose from parts of the application. And the major goal is to make medium-sized to large-scale applications easier, especially if you have like multiple device fragment scales, mobile, web, Xamarin, database triggers, stuff like this. So everything you have to deal right now as an application developer. Like you have to fetch from a database periodically, getting error reporting out of that, stuff like this. But it's also based on XCF. So you can just use the XCF parts. And as I said, it's highly modular, flexible, and I really try to put stuff really intelligent together, so pieces fit into each other without interfering with other frameworks or with Xwant, for example. And the best thing about Xenial is it's basically the core I worked on almost 10 years. So it's battle tested in production for 10 plus L years. I guess that's that's something wrong with my slides, but okay. It's 10 plus years now in production. Some parts of it are totally new, and some parts of it are I have to rewrite, so because of legal reasons. But the thing is, that's going to go on a product. And that's the major parts of Xenial. So there are utilities, DevTools, the framework itself, there are platform and business modules. And then on top of that, there will be a platform as a service, software as a service layer. And you can use each layer more or less independent from bottom up. So if you use the utilities, you can use them. If you just use the DevTools, just use them. If you just use the framework, just use the framework and up. If you start to going into business modules and the platform, you can host this stuff yourself. And for platform as a service, it's like Visual Studio Online, or as it's called now, VSDS, Azure DevOps kind of stuff, where you can use parts of the software to integrate in your stuff or monitor your stuff. So it's a really large stack, but we are that will take some time to get a really fine product out of it. So just get a quick overview with Xenial Utils. It's almost a bag of utilities, like all the stuff I deal all the time when I'm developing line of business applications or not line of business application, all kind of XAF applications or not even. So it's firewall configuration rules, file system extractions, getting into resource management, blah, 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 blah. All the kind of stuff I really need every day, or almost need for every application I write. It's like, this is a WinForms or application developer utility spell. Use it, it's on NuGet, or it will be on NuGet. Great documentation out there, use it, it's free. Then there is the next thing, that's our DevTools. That's really all the tools I use to develop applications, test them, load test them, getting into CI/CD, getting database working, command line tools for getting new controllers or all kind of stuff that makes me productive with refactorings and all like that stuff that I normally use when developing an XAF application, and not only an XAF application as writing, also for monitoring. So getting log files out of applications, stuff like this. Not the part of this talk today. Xenial.Framework is like expand or Express.Framework. That's the main product. The thing is, all of Xenial.Framework is modular, so you only pay for the stuff. You only pay the cost, the runtime cost of what you use in the framework. Like writing an extension method, like in ASP.NET Core, you write in startup CS, use static files. It's the same thing here. Use label property editor, and you're good to go. But you also can say, okay, use Xenial, and you have everything you have to offer, everything Xenial has to offer. That's the thing. It is like almost always the balance between convenient and fine granular use. That's the main idea. And the main thing is it's only distributed via NuGet. No installers, no. You can have like 17 different versions of Xenial in use on one machine for one project. There are no installers. There is no 16.6 installer that breaks 16.7, for example. Just it is focused on CI/CD. It's focused on code, and there's so much stuff in there I can't show even. Just a few keywords. File preview is like a file preview module, a little bit like the Office module from XAF, where they have the Excel thing and Word thing together. How's it called? Snap module. But for file preview. So it's PDF, images, text files, HTML, emails, Outlook messages, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and it's modular. You can pipe in AutoCAD files, you name it. There's a search module where you can just say, this is my business object, and it generates a search view for your object. Inlet forms is a rather neat one, and it's like 100 editors from token to label editor. So it's really a lot of stuff in framework itself, but that's not the thing I want to talk about right now. The main thing I'd like to talk about is like what makes Xenial so different to Expand or Safari is I try to use the framework bits itself to break some of the problems I had in the past with growing projects, more teammates that are working on a project, XAFL files that they go out of control because there are too many people working on it with merge conflicts and all the stuff. And a few of development patterns I discovered over the last 10 years. And it was model builders. I talked about that before, I guess. I don't have my blog post open anymore. But the main idea is like getting some kind of aspect-oriented programming to the application model without repeating yourself. And the main idea is it's like just getting back to my blog real quick. Blog delegate. I have to search myself. By the way, you can choose a skin down there.
Nice. It's so nice when sometimes you are looking for something and you have to Google.
I have no idea. Some of the stuff I wrote ages ago.
But that's the great thing about actually sharing your knowledge. That way, you not only do it for the community. Sometimes you have to refer to it yourself. So this is great.
Sure. So let's just a model builder. That's just a quick recap. That's on that was 2013. That's 7 years ago. And the source code is still out there. The idea is the same. It's like taking some kind of class or blah, 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 and putting some kind of builder class around it, like Entity.Framework does it. But now it's a little bit more on steroids than before. And the next thing I want to talk about is like layer builders. That's the next thing about that. And then there come column builders. I haven't something to show about it, and page object. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes for a quick demo.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, please.
You can read about the fluid model builder pattern on my blog. I will just go ahead and say like this was this not bad. Was this one? This one, or just search for Fluent on my blog?
Yeah, I will put it on the description of the video when we publish this.
So the main idea behind model builders itself is like, let's just have a look at the application itself for just a quick moment. It's a normal XF application. I hope it's in screen. I think that's better.
Yeah.
That's Xenial for now. For the platform part, it's not very pretty, but it does its job for now for me and for my crew. Basically, it's a normal XF application. Nothing really going on. We have some time tracking part where we can track some start time and end time, for example. It's 1945, and the end time is, I guess, 21. And then we have a pause time with like 1 hour, and then it just calculates the total time. Nothing too special about this view, but the neat thing is about nothing of this whole application has any XAML file. There is no model differences file. There isn't. That seems like crazy on the first run, and it is in some parts, because sometimes it's really hard to work with, because then I have to, that's the wrong Visual Studio. Sometimes it's really hard because sometimes something is missing, but you don't have to rely on you don't have to delete your XAML to using Xenial. It's just the way I am developing Xenial. It's not I don't like the XAML file. I like it for other things like develop, but I don't like it for developing itself. So basically, I have a normal XF application. It's nothing very different here, and I have my time tracking module because Xenial is modularized on top of it, and that's all I have in my application. It's just business objects, controllers, reports. There's a settings file because I'm using the new configuration API, and then there's the only thing I have right now, the module, and you see there is no XAML file whatsoever, not in the application or in the module itself. That's the reason why navigation is so horrible right now. But basically, the thing is, if you look at the Xenial module, it's basically the same as a normal XCF module, but everything is like opt-in. It's not a reflection first. It is opt-in first. So I have to specify which modules I use and stuff like this. And the same stuff goes for the model classes I am using inside my application. And the same goes for the controllers as well. So nothing special here. Also in my blog post, there is a reason for that. It's like application performance best practices, and I guess XF team has covered them as well. But now there's the interesting part, is that's the builder manager, I guess it's called, and every class in my solution is like a body type. It's called a model builder, and I have just done file nesting stuff. Like for example, I have an activity class, and I'm using the same properties as well always, but I'm using the only the necessary ones in the model. I don't have to specify this, but that's more convenience stuff. And then I have a model builder on top of that. So it is a model builder class that gets derived from model builder, and it says what kind of class I'm targeting for. And for the activity one, it's rather boring. But for example, if I go to the time tracker itself, it's like a time record management for tracking my own time and post times and stuff like this. I can just say for this type, so it's the time tracker, use the navigation item, use this attribute, and it's the same thing as writing the attribute on top of the class itself. So it's basically a body type applying attributes to the type. The neat thing about it is it's just code. I can, for example, do some kind of trickery and say, okay, has caption, for example, and say, okay, let's do math dot random. Is it math random or is random new random?
I think it's random. Yeah.
Yeah. And I say next. And I say toString. And I say da-da-da. It's just to show that you can do anything with it. Time tracker. And now I have to stop it, I guess. Yeah. You can do whatever you want because it's code. You can't do that with attributes. You can do an if-else statement, for example, so you can provide attributes on the fly. It's the same thing, or it's the same technology used using attributes. How's it called? Adding attributes at runtime?
When you extended the types, you mean?
Yeah, it's the thing.
Extend types info. That's the
yes. It's the same thing. It's hooking up into customized types info. It's providing a rich DSL, adding and removing attributes at runtime and stuff like this. So just I have no idea if this would work, but I guess
the scary live presentation, right? Where you don't know if it's going to compile or not.
But I have to be honest. I like to see Twitch, YouTube, when people are trying to do something and it doesn't go the right way. It fails because that's real life. It
will fail horrible. I know it.
That's what happened to me all the time.
There it is. Where's
nice,
my
nice.
Where is no? It's the lock screen. That's the wrong one.
No, we were seeing it. It was random number and then time tracker.
What is this? Windows Plus? What's the? Yeah, there it is. So you can see it's random number plus time tracker. So you can do everything you want to do in code. So that's the neat thing about being able to write it in code and not in attributes itself. So you can do all kind of stuff, reading out the database, stuff like this. You can do everything. That's the neat thing. I used this technique a lot, especially if I read some kind of client configuration file because he wanted to say, okay, that's not called client, that's called whatever, and then I can just change the captions. There's nothing you can't do with XCF at that point, but you have this single source of truth. And if you can write if-else clauses, it gets a lot easier. That's the neat thing about being able about the model builders. But the second thing that's the aspect-oriented stuff about this is like start time is a date time. Jose, how many times did you configure a date time and didn't correct with an attribute and didn't correctly remembered the syntax for the model for the edit mask?
I would say all the time.
Yes.
Every single time.
And that's the thing. The thing is, you can write extension methods on your own. And the neat thing about writing extension methods on your own is you can also namespace them about on the type. So you can write, it looks a little bit hard to read in this example, but you have, for example, with short time format, it applies 2 attributes at once. And on this type, it has 3 attributes at once. And you can combine them as you like, because every builder step just adds an attribute. And for example, if you have, for example, down there, I have percentage format, and it's only visible on decimal types. And so you can do short currency, long currency, foreign currency, stuff like this. And you just have to specify it once and use it all over your whole application without remembering all the time the correct edit mask with P and display format. And that's not the only thing where that thing gets in handy. Sometimes nice. You have a property editor where you have to specify more additional settings. There are some image property editor is a good example, where in the image property editor, you can specify more. Just let me check. I have no idea. But there are a lot of properties you have to, if it gets up. Yeah. So basically, it's the same thing, criteria, detail view, items, filter string, and you have like all that kind of stuff that only makes sense together, like the data source criteria and the data source property stuff like this. So you can combine attributes together to make logical sense and reuse them. And that's model builders. It's everything they are is like they are easy DSL about adding attributes to your business object. It's a little bit like in Entity Framework where you have this property and this property have an association. It's basically the same thing. I played around with doing that on XPO itself, but I found it counterintuitive. So, guys, any questions so far?
I put that one on the chat. I haven't got any. I don't know if everything is really following or everything is, or they will send the questions later. But I think that is really neat. Jose, do you remember in Xamarin, because we do a lot of Xamarin project, when we're trying to do all the UI in XAML, and then if we do it in C#, all the UI with all the extensions methods, it's more readable, and then we avoid to having to do type converters. We avoid to having to do a lot of things. So this is following the same. The readability is really.
Yeah, and there is one thing that you might not notice at the moment, Javier. I mean, or maybe you didn't suffer through it, but I guess Manuel did, and I did also. And it was like, yeah, like, yeah. But the thing is that in the early days, the model got broken all the time.
Yeah.
So sometimes you spend a lot of time.
Still does.
Doing like labels and stuff like that, and then the next day is gone. So you always, I mean, remember, Javier, that when we work on some projects, I always do it in a code way, and you always do it in the
in attributes.
Yeah. So it's because we come from different times to SAF. I mean, when I started, I decided that, well, I will do everything in code. So if something broken or if I need to upgrade, I just copy the source and I just put it in a new project and it will work. Or if it's a library. But at that, I mean, the model doesn't break anymore at all. But it used to break every time that you compile. I mean, in the first version or something in the beta. So
the main problem is in a team environment when multiple people are working together. The XAML file is now a lot better because they are trying to sort it alphabetically and they don't shuffle it around anymore. They used to do that because a lot because they didn't care or didn't know that will break people, and it broke me hundreds of times.
And you suffer through it. I mean, when you spend so much time working in a view, for example.
The main thing we suffered the most was like people in XCF, and I get it. That there is a barrier between having people to understand if my model editor gets up there. If I have the detail view of the criteria provider detail view, I have no idea what that is right now. And I change the caption here. Okay, let's take a better one. Activity detail view. And they have the activity name. And people are like, okay, let's change the name here. So, and now what happens? It doesn't get the item renamed, the label in the detail view gets renamed. And then you have like hundreds and hundreds of detail views getting renamed and hundreds of columns getting renamed, but they just wanted to say, okay, this thing is called for the user foo. Instead of going into the caption thing, I guess that's the main.
And then you have the code that maybe in the code it will say something, and in the model it will say something different. And maybe it's not even the view that you're watching. I mean, maybe it's another view, it's the default view. So sometimes,
but that's the thing. Here it's called act name, and in the detail view it's called other. And most of the time, people just want to rename the business object thing, not the detail view thing. And that's the main trap a lot of new developers getting in. And so that's a way for me, at least at a team lead. It was a way for me to say, okay, people, if you want to rename it at any point, then use just specify the caption here, and then it's global for at least the most majority of the whole product.
Manuel, can you do me a favor? I'm curious about something. I mean, you have model builders for each type. So at what point of the application, of the lifetime of the application, do the builders
hook up? Yeah, that's the thing. It's just the builder manager stuff just hooks into customized types info. And it's basically there's nothing special about it. It's just a builder pattern about customized find types info and trying to keep the application overhead as little as possible. The neat thing about that one is it totally plays well with model caching and stuff like this. And there is basically I showed it in my blog post as well, because Tolis was asking the same question, guys, as you. Was like, what is the benefit, and don't apply it to the application model itself. And basically that's the thing. It's before the application model gets even created.
Yeah, I mean that's the neat part about that moment in the module.
Basically the same thing it's doing under the hoods is like oversimplified this.
I mean, it's more human readable because you say like read date and this format and so on.
But there's a lot of optimizations going on with like what duplicate attributes, when they should be replaced, when they should be added and stuff like this. because you can have only one image name and only one caption.
Yeah, and you can override them, right? I mean,
yes.
Because in the Fluent pattern, you can do with image, this image, with caption, and then you do with image again, and you will overwrite the first image. So you always have the last build. I mean, the last part of the build.
And the neat thing is you can do this from another module as well. So you can go and load another definition from model builders and overwrite the stuff that got applied before. Or you can say
that's really neat. That's really neat.
Or you can say if customer A do this, and then you say else do the other one.
You build it in a different way.
You can do it whatever you like.
And also, I think that there are like some side effects that are actually good. For example, you can avoid magic strings.
Yeah.
Because you can like do everything in code, and I love that because I hate when I rename something and the text doesn't get renamed. So in this case, it will get renamed all the time. So it's nice in that sense.
I can show you a little magic thing if my IntelliSense would work right now, but I think it's totally great. I don't. It doesn't like Zoom very much, or my Studio broke. But there is also other syntax where you can say model. Oh no, it is there. Model builder dot create, for example, and then you have the smaller syntax. If you just do a small adjustment, like for a rate, and then you say okay, create, and then you have to pass it the types info, I guess, yeah. And then you can say okay, caption is has caption is like foo. It's everything is built around this fluid model syntax kind of stuff. So it's basically you can do it both ways, more object oriented or more declarative, I guess. That's more a kind of matter. Under the hood, the same thing comes out, and that gets me to the next thing. I hope people are still getting around, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have anything to do with model builders itself, but it just plays very nice with each other. And that's the thing with layout builders. And the thing with layout builders is I don't have any XAML in there. Nothing. And there is no trickery. So where's my application? Oh, there it is. Just let me reset all my applications thing. Reset differences. No user differences at all. Nothing hidden. Yes. Okay. It's telling me something is broken. And the thing is, okay, that's my rate, my invoice screen, and as you can see, it isn't a normal XAF screen default generated. It's like you have the client and the invoice number here, but the subject, and then there's an empty space, and then an invoice date, a payment target, tax rate, stuff like this, and then a total sum with 3 columns, and then there is like a collapsal group and a positions list. It's not pretty, but it's there. And there is no model XAML involved here, and there's nothing here in my model classes. So if I go to invoice, there's no trickery here. There's no attributes.
I like that approach. It's pure code, basically. Everything can be refactored.
Yes.
Everything you will know by code. I mean, by reflection, you can know anything also.
Yes.
So I love the approach. I think it's also lighter in the compiler.
I don't guess it's light on the compiler, but I don't think that's a main problem for us for right now.
At this moment,
but the thing is there are no attributes like the detail layout thing the DevExpress team provided a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, where I can say detail
that one I
layout
still have
column number
limitations.
1. It has a lot of limitations, yeah, and that's a thing, because I have here my invoice model builder, and as you can see here, let's go in there. Oh, I have to go in the other direction. I have a layout builder attribute, and it has a type of invoice layout builder, and I can apply this layout attribute on the class itself. So just comment that out for now. But it really plays really well along. So I don't want to confuse people. It's the same thing as I will say this one. Yes. Okay, that's the same thing I just did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just applying an attribute with a type of a layout builder. And basically, it's a layout builder that's just a class that's derived from layout builder. It's not very important. It's just an abstract class with some convenience methods in it. And then the trick is there is a layout builder of T, but I don't use that here for a reason, because it's not finished yet. And there is a static import right here where I say, okay, there is a layout builder of T where you import the type you are going to build the layout for. And basically, this layout is rather boring, but it's I try to come up with something that's good enough for the demo, but not too confusing. So what we are having here is like there is an DSL about building vertical groups and horizontal groups and tab groups. You can make a tab, and in this tab you can do a tab group. No, tab group. My laptop is dying. So tab
It's
group
because of the
1.
coffee.
Yeah, I guess. And it can have like 5 tab groups or something like this. Oh, and in those tab groups, you can specify layout items as you would in the normal editor with drag and drop. Mm-hmm. But the neat thing about this is it is code, and it is easy readable. So by default, everything is a horizontal group in XAF, so you have to start with a vertical group to align things under each other. But in between the groups, everything is split up in percentage most of the time. And so you have 2 editors, 1 horizontal group. The first row is client and invoice number, and the next row is subject with an empty space. So they get grouped together in the next row. And so it goes on. But you also don't lose any capabilities that you have in the model editor. So you can specify captions or image names, or there's almost everything you can do. You can everything because you have you have a callback as well. For example, property editor options. Property editor options is like takes an O, and then now I have to because I can't see anything because there's the video in the way. That's it. Caption. Whoop. Caption. Property editing. Options, and this is a callback, so you can specify everything you would specify on an A model property editor as well. So if you have anything to do with the model, you can totally do that. So for example, catchen, blah. Oh, and now it's yelling at me because compiler issues with. But we can try some image name, o.image name. They removed the image name for the last from the last 21 release. But okay, yeah. But basically, the neat thing is it's just code as well, because it's building a layer tree, and you can say, okay, we can extract this thing to a method, for example, if it would let me. Because my studio is breaking. Yeah, but that's the. I hope that wasn't too confusing for the layout groups.
I think it was like nice. I mean, I always try to do everything in code. So for me, this is something that I will use basically all the time, because I don't like the drag and drop stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's useful, but sometimes you don't know if you're doing it in the right node, or then you will have like what the attribute said in the code and what you will have in the difference, and you will have in each difference for each type of role and so on. And sometimes I got a call from a customer like, just change this label.
Oh.
And it takes forever to locate where that label is actually.
Yes. And then I have to look. I said there. There it is. So it's still running.
I think we have a question, Manuel, in the chat.
Sure.
Is from Jacek. I hope I pronounced it right. And he's asking if this have an implication on the performance. I mean, does it have an overhead?
No, it has an implication on the performance. Yes, it does have the same. It has the same implications on the performance as any model generator updater. So if you have model caching on, then it doesn't affect application performance on after model cache is generated. I have another thing side by side that generates. I wrote about it, I guess, a couple of years ago. If you generate the model cache upfront at build time, your developers don't, your customers don't feel any difference at all. It's faster than relying only on model generation.
Oh, nice.
The only overhead that's in there is the more attributes you add at runtime, the compiler can't add. There isn't a good way to speed that up right now, but it's in the milliseconds range. So
yeah, because you have to go through that process on the startup of the application.
Yes,
because you have to modify the type infos. So
everything you have to do with types infos is runtime.
But so you're adding that to the startup time of the application. But in general, people expect that the startup takes some time somehow because you're doing all the checks and blah blah blah. So it's expected actually.
I figured out that customized types info. We had an application with, let me guess, around 10,000 model classes over 100 modules, and I guess customized types info took 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, no one will even notice. I mean, yes, I think that to put your answer in a different way is like every line of code that you write will be an overhead in general. So the answer is yes, there is an overhead because there is always an overhead. No, but it's not significant. It's not significant at all.
Yeah,
I think that will be the answer.
It is significant if you don't use model caching. Because if you rewrite the application tree all the time, the application model, that's really expensive. But if you use application caching, then the last version before the user gets the application in the hands wins. So you can do all kinds of transformations on the application model, and the last one wins. And if you cache that, and the best thing you can do is cache it and take the model file and give it to the user as the last layer. It impacts compile time, not runtime performance.
Nice.
That's the neat thing.
I will add here as to, let's say that I'm the younger SAF developer, the newer. I start like in 2014, 2015. But when I start, we use the model heavily. And we do for a lot of things. And I think that for a beginner, it's nice. It's something that you can get. The thing is when it start giving you problem, and if you see as people start getting better and better at SAF, they start moving away from the model. And you realize that we did a survey on the Facebook group. And what model do you need more? When the people were getting a more SAF experience, they were using less module designer, less application designer, and they still use the model, but use it just for simple, for specific things. So every time they are getting away from that.
Yes, that's the main thing I really like about this approach. It doesn't take you anything away. You can still use Xamarin. It's a pick and choose. The thing is, the only thing is if you use a layout builder and you redefine the layout in code, it doesn't do anything if you have if you have defined the layout in Xamarin, in model differences, because model difference is a higher order. It's on a higher layer. So the thing is, if you go and introduce a layout builder for a class, you write the layout builder, and
you will end up with the layout in the end.
And you delete the stuff from the Xamarin. You delete it from the difference file, and then it takes over, because it's underneath. And if you write the layout builder and it interferes, just comment it out. It's just like making a switch. If the attribute isn't there, it isn't registered. So that's the neat thing.
Okay, Manuel, we have another question, but it's already answered somehow. The same person is asking if you can build nested layout groups in the model builder. And I think you already show it, but I just wanted to put it in the video. So everyone knows about it.
Just the thing is, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I showed right now what's possible. That the main idea, you can import whole other layout groups and stuff like this, doing all kind of stuff like columns inlay or import layouts from other stuff. There is too much of an API surface to cover. Right.
I think that Javier, you should put a note on this for the other meetups and the stand-ups. Is like, I think that this is a really interesting topic because it's a pain point for everyone.
I have to say that I already put a note for myself to push
to check it.
Manuel to send me a pre-release or something so I can myself test it. So next time when we get in the next meetup, I can actually tell him, hey, can you show this? This is really cool. And move forward.
Let's can we make a quick breakup on this right now? I think the demo stuff is covered, I guess. Questions, you can send me an email, just send me a tweet about it. It's just I want to get to my end with my slides, so I didn't waste my time making them. Okay, so the next thing, I'll go back. What's back on that one? No. Damn it. Where was demo time?
You know that people, when they know that you're a programmer, they think that you're really good in office stuff like Excel. And
no, I'm not.
And I suck at them. I mean,
so
totally.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg that Xenial.Framework is offering. There will be flexible and reasonable pricing. There is a lot of support of options. I am planning to release an alpha or closed beta in May, thanks COVID-19, I don't think that is going to happen in May. So stay tuned. Almost the same support conditions as with DevExpress. It will be cheaper than DevExpress Universal, but around the same price point, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, no way to talk about platform. It's way too large. So keep an eye on it. I hope we can cover a little bit the next time.